Hello, everyone. This is Travis again, and today we are with Mark Homer of GNGF, and Mark is not only an agency owner, but he's a longtime friend. This is, again, another webinar with one of our partners for the Association of Entrepreneurial Attorneys. We like to do these webinars so we can bring you some great educational content from experts like Mark who know exactly what's going on in the scene. And Mark's one of those guys that is well respected, and I personally trust him in this space. And we, again, refer clients back and forth to each other on different levels. But Mark is just, he knows what he's doing. He's got his head in a lot of different spaces in this industry. And, you know, he just has great insight into what's going on, especially in the SEO, digital marketing, PPC, local aspects. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Mark, thanks for your time. Glad you're here. I'll let you kind of tell you a little bit about yourself, and then we can dive right into the content.
Awesome. Thanks, Travis. And, thanks to the AA for having me. Very excited. This is a really cool topic that when they called and said, hey, do you mind talking about this? We get a lot of these questions. I bet you do, because we get these questions all the time. So again, real quickly, I'm Mark Homer. I'm the founder and owner of GNGF, which is Get Noticed, Get Found. So you'll hear both names out there. So, and I've been doing this for, gosh, I think 8 years now. Met a lot of attorneys over the years because we actually get out there speaking a lot, especially in the back of our book, which I'll talk about here in a second. But and so we do bar associations and events all the time. Travis and I have shared the stage many times, so it's great to be on the webinar with you.
Yeah, today, these questions we're going to get today, Mark, the biggest thing is that you and I get constantly asked at conferences and just in day-to-day conversation. And so I hope that people that, on here today are ready, taking notes and really, open to hearing exactly what you have to say. Because, this stuff is meaningful. And for people who are investing large amounts of money in any one of these particular digital marketing efforts, they really need to pay attention, because the stuff you're going to they may have an impact on where they're investing that money.
Yeah, totally. And I do have a lot to cover, so I'm going to go a little bit fast. So if you got some notes and pen and paper ready, take some notes. And there is a replay, right? I believe, Travis, you guys record this and do a replay?
There is a replay, and we also have a Q&A and a live chat. So I will be monitoring the Q&A and the live chat. So if you guys have a question, go ahead and type it in the Q&A or the chat. And if I get a chance to interrupt Mark, if it makes sense, I'll do that. If not, we were going to have some time at the end where we could address it, but we definitely will address it. So I assure you that. The other thing I want to mention is Mark and I are doing an event together in September in Indianapolis. So if anyone's in that area, we're going to be covering a lot of these topics, but in a very intimate environment where we're going to be spending, some one-on-one time with about 25 or 30 different firms, and, a full day of just education and diving deep into your specific issues. So yeah, we'll send you more information about that, but I just want to make sure I mention that before my team gets mad at me about
yeah,
that.
no, if you can get there, I love doing those when we get to be able to be one-on-one and dive into very specific things. I mean, we pulled up analytics, right, with people on the fly, so it's great. Yeah. So that definitely, if you can get in person, it's going to be way better than this webinar, but hopefully this will tide you over till then. And any other questions you have, because the AAs, invite us to speak and help out with this stuff, we are offering a free copy of our book, which you can go on Amazon and get, or just go to gngf.com free-book, and you can grab a copy of that. We'll get that mailed out to you. It's not an ebook; it's actually a physical book that'll get mailed, so it'll probably take a week or so. But that has a lot of the backup and information, so more detail behind a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today. So hopefully that helps as well.
All right, Mark, it's all yours. Take it away.
Cool. So, first thing we always get is what keywords I worry about. And I wanted to first level set a couple things. And a lot of people may know this, but I'm going to talk about the differences of these things as we go forward. So the first thing is, when you have keywords, you've got what I consider branded search keywords or non-branded search keywords. Branded search is what it sounds like. It's your brand, and your brand as a lawyer is your name is the #1 part of your brand, right? So you're out there networking, you're talking to people, you're a member of the community, you're involved. You need to make sure your name is protected online with keywords, but also your firm name, maybe other key partners or key staff that's very client facing that could be referred. So that's the branded search side. So, and it is important, and we're going to talk about that. And then the non-branded search, these are things that people are searching for these terms, and they probably don't know you, are somebody who can help them, but they know they have a problem, right? So a divorce attorney near me, like that person has a problem and is looking for some help, right? And there's all kinds of keywords that fall into this, but these are the people that don't know you. But if your firm drops in there and can help them out at the right time online, they can pick up the phone and give you a call, right? So that's growing your lead. So the branded search, we consider kind of protecting your referrals. And then the non-branded search, I consider like kind of growing with new leads. So good way to, is kind of separate that in your head. There's branded and non-branded, and they're both really important. So we're going to dive into some of this. The other thing to level set is just paid versus organic, right? Because it looks a lot different than it used to. 5-6 years ago, it was really obvious what was a paid ad, right? I mean, Travis, you remember the time of like the yellow blocks, and it was so obvious, and you just would skim past the yellow block and you go to the organic search.
Yeah, now that Google's gotten really clever with that, though.
Yeah, and there's a reason they make billions of dollars every 3 months, right? They've gotten really good at getting us to click the ads. And I think as advertisers, we've gotten much better at realizing what people are looking for, and people are clicking on ads more. There's a lot of data out that people click on ads much more than they used to. I think we had 2 to 3% more traffic coming from paid advertising than organic. And I think some of it has to do with this layout. So you see here on the left, you've got 3 ads at the top that look very similar to an organic search. You even have something right under the map that you're able to kind of put these Google My Business listing, have an ad that looks identical to the Google My Business listing, right?
Right.
So you can have these different ads there. And then the organic side, that's the stuff we've traditionally been talking about for many, many years about, hey, you need to be in the top of Google. So this is, paid versus organic. So again, just some level setting here. And then there are searches, okay, where you just have organic results. So this is an example where how much is alimony in Cincinnati, Ohio? Probably somebody who is a little nervous about maybe, what's coming up. There's some really tough tension going on in conversations in a divorce, and maybe need some help, right? So that's a good search. If somebody searches that, that's probably a good potential prospect. And as good as we are as marketers, and as good as you are as marketing your firm and maybe doing paid advertising, there's a lot of smart money out there. Nobody bid on this, okay? So just remember, and we talk about, is SEO dead? And do I need to worry about search engine optimization? Over 50% of searches don't have a paid ad at the top. So yes, there are a lot of paid advertisements out there, but here's a perfect example. And this is one that, it only took me 2 or 3 searches to find this, right? Because, like half of them don't have something on top. So just remember that 50% of your searches don't have paid ads.
Well, that's pretty impactful, actually. I didn't, that's a good stat.
Yeah, and it used to be about 53%. So it is down to 50.1. Like that was literally, as of 2018, it was 50.1% in the data that, somebody who tracks that, right? I mean, it's not obviously a perfect data, but in their data set. So it is more and more have ads, but we're only, we're still at half that don't. So, 2005, this is what we looked like online, right? Online, when somebody said, are you online? Are you doing search engine optimization and stuff like that? They really pretty much talked about your website. That's all that mattered. Okay. I mean, this was the height of the internet, right? I mean, Jones Day, not a small firm, and this was their website, in 2005. But now in 2019, online doesn't mean your website. It means your whole website presence. Okay. We've got so much stuff out there from social media, right? You got your Facebooks, you got your Instagram and LinkedIn. Then you got like Super Lawyers and Avo and very industry specific things. You got your Better Business Bureau still around, right? Then Google My Business, we're gonna spend a lot of time on. So you've got all this stuff that surrounds your website. I think the website's still important, and it still is the center of all that. But you need to think, when you're thinking search engine optimization, it's not just, is my website ranking? It's, is my firm in front of people correctly? And that may mean some of these other presences. Okay. So this is kind of how I always tell people, like, SEO means search engine optimization. So what are the search engines putting in front of consumers out there? Not website optimization. It's not about just my website getting in front of people. So you have to think bigger than just your website. And that's a common thing we get, is people are like, my website's not ranking. And then we'll work with them a little bit and make, they realize that, well, your website's not ranking, but man, like Avo is coming up all the time there, and you're there and you're getting leads from that. So maybe don't shirk from Avo, because people are, don't want to spend money on some of these other directories. And if it's ranking, it may be an okay place to spend, test it, but you need to be thinking other places. And this is a perfect example of the same example I used earlier, on the organic side here, right, you've got Cordell. I mean, they're everywhere on the East Coast. On the east, at least east half. I don't know if you have it over on the west side, Travis, but Cordell is like always on a divorce term. They're always in toward the top. But below that, I've got Super Lawyers, right? I got Justia. You got, so you got your Avos. These are other places. The first 3 listings, Kathy Cook, Beth Silverman, Cordell here, are Google My Business profiles. That information is not because their website's ranking well, it's because their Google My Business is done well. Okay. So you got to think in terms of, the overall search engine listings and what you can do. And then in terms of SEO, Google is still saying that SEO is something that's important. Like, this is from their help docs, okay? So they're actually saying, it is often okay if you hire an SEO, it can improve your site and save you time. So they're still on their help doc saying, as much as we're trying to keep you from gaming the system, you still should be thinking about this, of how to make sure your business is put in the best light in front of the search engines. So I have to go in and talk a little bit about Google My Business. We're going to spend a little bit of time here just because, and Travis and I were talking about this the other day, and Google My Business is slowly becoming almost like your first website, and your main website's like becoming a second website. We're seeing traffic, not just traffic to a website, but phone calls and visits about information and people clicking on stuff in the Google My Business, like, just skyrocket. The amount of phone calls that come directly from your Google My Business listing, which Google tells you, it's if you have a Google My Business, you can go to your insights if you have that all set up correctly, or your agency can help show you, or they should be showing you this stuff, by the way. Your Google My Business insights is not available in analytics. So you have to kind of look at it separately, and has a lot more information than you can just get out of analytics, because this is stuff that people aren't even going to your website. So here you can see, if I search on accident lawyer near me, right? So I've got the map. So there's ads, right? I got the map, and then I've got these listings with stars and stuff. And that really is where people are spending their time, right? They're like, okay, who's near me on the map? Okay, well, there's some reviews. I got 200 reviews for O'Connor here. I got 150 for Greg Young. Let me click on that. And as they click around here, right, like, things open up. So Google doesn't take you to your website. If I click on, Castelli there, they didn't take me to the website. They kept me on Google's property and gave me more information. Now, if you go to your homepage, your website, and you may even take 2 or 3 pages to do this, right? They've done it all in one place. So as a consumer, right, I've got, here's the information, here's who they are, here's some questions that somebody asked and they answered, here's a bunch of reviews. I can look at the detail of the reviews. Oh, look, are they open or not? This person actually opens at 10 a.m., which I think is very strange. Everybody else is open at 9 a.m., he's open at 10 a.m. Probably loses business because of that, by the way. If you're not open 24 hours, it's going to say closed after 5 p.m. So somebody's going to call somebody else. So there's all these little subtle things on Google My Business that can lead to people just clicking on that phone number right there and calling you. They click on that phone number, they call you. That is tracked in Google My Business, but that doesn't ever show up on your website and analytics.
It's funny, Mark. I've been talking about this. I remember I did my first webinar on GMB about in 2013, and it still amazes me how many attorneys don't take this seriously.
Yeah, it is, and it was one of those things where they kept dropping the ball. Google over and over and over kept trying to do this different ways. I think they've figured it out, and they're being more consistent about it, and it's showing up more and more. So example is, they're not just looking to you, the lawyer, to give this information. They are trying to source the correct information for these listings from across the web, from users out there, right? So as a user, I was able to say, suggest and edit, right? So I don't work, and we're not an agency for this Anthony Castelli person. I just grabbed him off online doing a search, and Google allows me to suggest and edit. So being the fact that I do a lot of stuff with Google, and I've gotten approved enough by suggesting edits, and we, just because I happen to be an agency, that if I suggested an edit and said, well, this person's open at 9 a.m., not 10 a.m., because I go there all the time and I see it on the door, Google may run that through. Sometimes they'll send it to the business owner saying, hey, somebody suggested an edit, or they'll verify it enough with 3 or 4 other people. But users are updating this information. So you got to be on top of your Google My Business, because sometimes things can change even though you updated it yourself. So one thing I want to step back is try to explain why. So why is Google going to all this effort for this local business information and serving it up and taking up tons of real estate, right? So on that search listing, right, the maps take up a bunch of real estate. So first of all, they realized that it was like, 30 to 40% of searches that users are doing have a local intent. What that means is the searchers are looking for something that has a local answer, whether it's a brick and mortar or a pizza place or something like that, right? They're looking for somebody like in the area. So they needed to solve that problem, right? Because most the search engine optimization before kind of this local search, most of the search engine optimization skewed toward the larger company, which was a national thing. So with local, it allowed them to kind of like reset the stage a little bit and say, here's people within a certain area of you who meet that search intent of, I need a lawyer. It's like, well, I don't want a lawyer from Kansas when I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm looking for somebody around the corner from me. And that's what they try to do. Then the second thing is they put up all this stuff for websites and business owners and say, hey, there's this thing called schema, and you go put this technical stuff behind your scenes, and we'll give you some examples of how to do that. And all us agency and SEO type people, we ran to that, and the really smart, law firms, maybe they figured it out and they put it on their websites, right? But most people didn't, okay? So what Google ended up with is, and you got to remember, they're not doing this to solve the law firm's problem. They're doing this to solve Google's problem with local businesses around the world. So unfortunately, like I'd say actually, Travis, lawyers are pretty good. The ones that are, doing often tend to be ahead in terms of like using schema markup and having hours on their website and contact information, right? But the problem is you have businesses like this, right? So here is a hotel from Hawaii, I think. So, and unfortunately, this is a static image. You can't see that most of the stuff blinks and turns and rotates and scrolls across the page. It was very scary to look, actually. Doesn't even render well. So there's no good information here for Google to scrape and say, what is this person hours? What are their address? What is this, all this information, right? Or you got this, X-ray company, right? So, what is Google supposed to do with that? This is a local, Northwest, Pacific Northwest X-ray company to help, people in that area. But there's no information for Google to grab to put this information up there. Or you got your famous Lings cars. Now, as a used car dealer, maybe this is what they're going for. But you get these, just these horrible websites. Have you seen that one before, Travis? That's a good one.
Yeah, yes, I have. That's awesome.
So, you get these really bad websites. And so Google's saying, hey, we can't trust this data. We're going to create our own place for this data, and we're going to push business owners and make it super easy for them. And you know what? Forget them. If they don't even do it, we're going to let consumers update it. Okay. So now the coffee shop down the street that doesn't have any time to even look at the internet, but everybody wants to know what time they open. Some user can update that information, and it's there for the, everybody on their mobile device to figure out. Okay. So because most law firms are a local business, we're lumped into this, and we have to work with it. And it is driving a lot of traffic and phone calls. So I think don't just be frustrated and work with it, take advantage of it. So one of the things I always talk about is don't lose the referrals that you didn't even know you had. So a lot of people go online and they're not finding you, but they're already looking for you, right? So this isn't people who, I typed estate planning attorney and I didn't see your website because it didn't rank well. These are people who type your name, and because your web presence kind of sucks on your own branded search, they're not finding you. So we did a survey a few years back, and this is in our book, and it's more detail about it. But essentially, we asked people, when are you likely to visit a law firm's website? The majority of people are visiting a website, first of all, before they even call the law firm. Okay, maybe before they visit, they're finding directions. Maybe they talk to you on the phone, but before they meet with you, they want to go in and learn a little bit more information, right? They're checking you out. But the fact the majority of people, before they even call the law firm, these are the people that, if you're not dominating, they may not find you. So this is like kind of a little bit of a case study. So this is a client that had very little presence online. So we did, some work and really, to be honest, we did a lot of the basics works here. This isn't like the crazy stuff. I mean, like the first half of our book, you get to this point. You got they've got what, 5 links there on just about their website, all around branded. This is searching for their name. You know, they got a couple locations, so they have a couple Facebook pages, a couple Yelp pages. They got their YouTube there. They got the really good My Business profile. Now, here's the interesting thing. All that was just the initial work of focusing on their web presence of branded search. We didn't do any organic work on non-branded terms. So we didn't really focus on, you know, like divorce attorney and estate planning and car accident, whatever, you know, like the different practice areas. What we did is just focused on that one area of their branded search. And after 3 months, or maybe it was 4, I think this one was 4 months. So after 4 months, their sessions increased by 50%, their leads increased by 170%, and their bounce rate went down. I mean, they were calling us and like, I can't believe we must be ranking so well, the phone's ringing off the hook. And we're like, well, we haven't even got to that point yet. So really what, you know, they're like, well, scratching their head, well, what's going on? I'm like, well, people were already looking for you, and your web presence was so bad that they just decided to not call you and call the person that came up on Google, right? I mean, how embarrassing is that, right? So somebody's referred to you, but then they see what they see online they don't like, and because, hey, I'm online, so I got referred to you as a divorce attorney, but instead of calling you, I don't like your web presence, I'm just going to type divorce attorney and call the first person that Google gives a lot of stars to, right? That's where things are going, and like it or not, that's the reality of today. You also can protect your referral with ads. This is an example of somebody of, you know, like there's 3 different, so I typed Kraus Law Firm, just because I knew there's a bunch of different ones here. There's 3 different Kraus Law Firms on this webpage. None of them are paying for an ad on their name, but somebody is, right? So somebody searching for Kraus Law Firm, if they're looking for an auto injury, like sure enough, right at the top, somebody else is coming up and might get a phone call. So I'm not saying to go bid on everybody else's name, but I'm saying maybe it's okay to bid on your name to protect that. Because it's, Travis, I mean, you do this all the time, right? That's like pennies on the dollar to bid on your own name.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the cardinal rules. I mean, you just have to do it. It's just one of the, you know, the must-dos of PPC.
Yep. So let's jump into non-branded search. And like I said, I'm going fast because I know we want to have time for Q&A, and I got a lot of stuff to cover. I'm trying to cover SEO and PPC. There's a lot of stuff, right? You could cover just SEO in like an hour. So, well, a full day, to be honest. So on the non-branded search side.
Well, Mark, I kind of just summarize the last 2 things. I think key takeaways that I don't see people do often, and you talk about a lot. In fact, you talk about it, you know, quite, you know, almost every time I hear you speak, protecting and your own brand from an SEO perspective and a PPC perspective, like first and foremost. Like people are searching for you and they're not finding you, and that, you know, via, you know, the web and under your own brand, there's a big problem and you need to address that. So
yeah. And I think for most firms out there, at least half, if not more, of your business is still going to come because you did a good job for somebody else, right? You know, you're out there, yeah, you're networking, you're in the community, you're involved in some community engagement, some outreach stuff, right? People are going to go because they think you're a good person or heard you're a good person and want to work with you. That is like, you know, like just they're going online to look at you before they call now. So just protect that. I mean, that's the easy win, right? Now we're going to talk about what gets more difficult. Okay, this is the non-branded searches. So this is, you know, I'm looking for a divorce attorney or something like that. So we talked about, you know, over 50% of traffic still comes from organic search. So, or actually, no, we talked about 50% of traffic that doesn't have paid ads. The data from Google is still about 50% of traffic comes from organic searches to websites. I think ours, when somebody does paid advertising, I think our number is somewhere around 45 on average, but probably on average, you know, we're close to that 50% too, I'd say in most law firms we have. Still majority of traffic coming from organic searches. In the legal industry, online marketing is very competitive. The law firms that kind of jumped in early have some good inertia, and so it's costing more time and effort for other people to kind of get in front of that. I honestly think that SEO, you know, when you're trying to go after non-branded terms, you probably should have some help. Whether that help is, you go to some seminars, you are part of a group and you're trying to, have somebody in-house, you're trying to help, learn how to do it, or whether you have an agency, like it's not something you just, go online and look at a Google Help doc and you're all set. It also takes time. Getting ranked with your website or some other, places that, your web presence, can often take up to about a year. I usually tell people about a year. Sometimes we get a little bit head up in some competitive markets, doing all the right things and spending the time and effort and money, sometimes takes about a year, but it does work. Okay. We know that when if we have a client and they go from kind of like page 2 to page 1, they'll double their sessions, so with the same kind of like conversion rate, that's like doubling your leads, right? Then when they get toward the top of page 1, usually like the first 3 spots, it like doubles again. And for some of that, it's actually more than a double, but just making it easy for you. So like if you're not ranking and you know how much kind of traffic you're getting and how many leads you're getting, if you do the work to get to page 1, double the amount of leads you're getting, right? And if you can do the extra work to get to like 1, 2, or 3, double it again, right? It's probably more than that, but those are, some more conservative numbers to think about. But it is hard. And I still go back to look at Google My Business first, right? This is an area, if you're going to do anything, this isn't as hard. You can, and Google's made it easy, right? So you can update all your information. You can have a good description there, right? You can also now, so make sure you have your practice area in your picked correctly. Make sure your description's really good. Have lots of reviews. I mean, you should be heading toward, like I used to tell people, like 15 to 20 reviews. Now, just because everybody's been doing that for years, you're now in like 50 to 100 reviews for a lot of most metropolitans or mid-market cities. Like here, Diane, who is in the top 3, typically most searches, I think she got 73 reviews, right? So she's over 50. And then Google's allowed you to do little social media type stuff. So you can have posts. Now, one of the cool things about posts is you can post kind of images or other stuff in there. So what they did, I'm not sure where they got this recommendation, but what they did is they post images of reviews that happen. So people were saying, hey, here's a review. They post an image and say, hey, thanks for the kind words. Well, that image gets a better profile on the Google My Business. And so now not only do you have your reviews, but you have a picture of a review, right? So easy things to take advantage of. But our feeling is that the more you interact with Google My Business, the more posts you do, the more reviews you get involved with Q&A. And by the way, somebody can ask a question and you could answer it. And that question could be, why should I work with a firm like yours? And you can answer exactly what you want, right? So you can ask your own questions right now in Google My Business. So you could ask all the frequently asked questions that you're spending all the time and effort on your website to build this great content. You can put some of that in a smaller version right there in Google My Business. And all of this shows up before they even get to your website. So this is where I talk about website, is not just the only thing to worry about. The whole search engine, and Google My Business is taking a lot of the real estate. So this is, out of this webinar, if you don't do anything else, go spend some time in Google My Business. Okay. Now, outside of that, this is where I recommend, going to a seminar or, reading some more books. This is what is working right now. You definitely have to have a mobile-friendly, responsive design. Not 2 different websites that you're trying to like canonicalize correctly and all that kind of stuff. Just mobile-friendly, responsive design. Mobile is probably half of your traffic. Some of you, maybe it's 40%. If you don't have a good mobile-friendly website, it's going to be less because Google's now just not showing websites that don't have a mobile-friendly interface on mobile search. In mobile searches, half of searches across Google, we're seeing about 45 to 50 for law firms. It has to be fast and it has to be secure. So speed, we tell people, shoot for sub 2 seconds. Sometimes depending on other things you got going on, if you're doing some video and stuff like that, on some pages it may be harder, but shoot for under 2 seconds and make it secure. This is something that I'm gonna get blasted by some people, but I've been kind of like speaking this for about a year now. Content is not king. More is not better. There's so much junk out there because everybody thought they needed a ton of content. Good content is king. but it's not more that you need. So what I think is, very relevant consumer advocate content. So things that actually help answer the problems they have in their head, right? So if somebody comes to your website and all they get is information about how awesome you are, or the truck accident that happened on I-95, 6 months ago, like who cares, right? But what happened, what about me, the consumer? Like what's in their head, right? That kind of content. Hopefully for some of you, this may come as like, oh, thank God Mark said this. Blogs are not needed, okay? Like just keeping up a blog for the sake of search engine optimization, stop. You're probably having somebody else write a bunch of junk that isn't doing a benefit to your brand or your search engine optimization. FAQs, on the other hand, which is probably what you do every single day on the phone, is answer a frequently asked question, right? If somebody's asking the question, you've got that question more than once, it's frequently asked, right? So write those questions down, put that content on your website. That answering questions is what search engines are all about. Google's even starting to pull some of those questions into little knowledge cards. And if the knowledge card has a link to your website, it's the first return, sometimes over a paid ad. So crazy, like that the FAQs are working really well. And then this is where some of the technical stuff gets in. You do have to have your title tags correct. You have to have all your site markup, like we call it schema markup, that has like, here's my address, here I'm a law firm, I'm an attorney, here's a question, here's an answer, here's a review. You can mark all that up with code behind the scenes so that the search engines can read it faster and put it in the results better. Site structure is important. The way you structure a site. I'm big on, I think a lot of proprietary platforms force you into a site structure that isn't always optimal for, between different firms. So, having a platform that allows you to kind of build the site structure you need, I think is important. And then internal linking, people forget a bit about this one all the time, but you can really kind of help the search engines understand who you are by linking similar content together. So they kind of go, oh, they didn't just talk about it here. They also talked about it here, 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 and here. They must know this stuff really well. Let me show them more often for this result. And that's not even an external link, right? That's internal. You get to control that. That's awesome. And then if you've been in the SEO game at all and talk to agencies, everybody says you need links. Links are still important in search engine optimization. The good news is in local search, you don't need tons of links. You don't need all these crazy like high domain authority links from CNN or whatever. Local links work really well. So if you can find appropriate links that are like local to your area, like 5 to 7 really good local links can often outweigh people that have all these like kind of scammy big domain authority links that they've spent money getting instead of actually real effort. So that's good news for a lot of people. We're really happy about that, and we're like that. All our data is continuing to show that. So Google is doing some right things there. But that's a lot of information really fast. But I'm here to say that SEO does work. It's important. It's not just about, like your website. Think about all the other real estate on the search engines, and think about, how do you show up with that? Whether it's how's your Avo page look, if that's showing up for you. For some markets, it's Thumbtack, which people are like, well, Thumbtack, like what is that? Go check it out. Like it may be somewhere where you want to have a optimized profile. So if, look at beyond your website. And then here's the things, when you are thinking about your website and getting it ranked for non-branded terms, this is the stuff that at the top of the list, if you can kind of just do these things, again, look at our book, attend some seminars. There's some great information out there. I mean, AAA's got it. Continues to get more and more information out there about this stuff, and more articles. I know we're submitting some stuff on this, so you'll be able to grab some information and learn more later.
Wow, that was fast. That was good.
Yeah, 25 minutes of SEO. But now let's jump to the other side, right? So the other question, and the original question we always get is like, should I spend money on SEO or SEM, right? So I wanted to talk about both, and that there's value. And so we've gone on the SEO side. I think to summarize, Travis, you summarized really well. Branded is really important, right? So start with your branded. That's easy win. You can often do that in-house with a little bit. I mean, it's time. It's a lot of time in. So what's your time worth? But you can do that often in-house. It's when you get to the non-branded searches that maybe tap an expert or do some more deep dives. All right, search engine marketing is what the industry calls the SEO and digital marketing and all that kind of industries, we call search engine marketing is the term we use. You'll hear that term. What that really means is anything paid advertising. Okay. SEO, search engine optimization, search engine marketing is paid advertising. So a lot of people hear SEM and kind of like think that people mean SEO. So I just wanted to get that out. So I'm going to spend most of my time on Google ads. Some of this could apply to Facebook. Google's where we're talking a lot about today, especially when it comes to SEO versus something. So for paid advertising, you've got on the left side, I've got SEO, right? It's like the tortoise versus the hare. SEO takes a lot of time. It may take a year to start seeing some, decent ROI. It may take another couple years to kind of like where you're just always there and, can maybe dial back a little bit of the work on SEO. And, but it gets you there. And when it works, you don't have to keep showing up every month paying thousands of dollars to Google, right? Once you kind of get your SEO game going, that tortoise ultimately wins the race. However, you don't start there, right? So if you need to move fast and you need to start, getting some leads in the next few months, and you want to kind of, tweak things and get, try maybe a new practice area, Google ads are a great way to go. So the other thing about Google Google ads is that because of mobile, I used to say SEO or paid ads. Now it's pretty much, if you're doing your SEO, you still need to do paid ads even when you rank really well, because mobile is killing search engine optimization for a lot of people. And Travis, I know that you guys have been talking about mobile and paid for a while, but this is off a screenshot off my phone, and I've got one of those big XR like larger than my hand kind of phones, and like that screenshot doesn't have a single organic. In fact, if I was able to scroll one more, it would be another ad map and another map ad. So it was almost 2 full swipes.
Yeah, it's before 3 for most people. Yeah,
before I got to an organic, right?
Yep.
So so 3 if you have a regular size phone. So that was like the mobile is one thing you got to be thinking about. Like, man, like Google Smart, right? Look how tiny the word ad is there, and that looks like an organic return. So that like they're getting good at it. The other side of it is voice search. Okay. So, Travis, right? Like when we run advertising campaigns, if somebody clicks on an ad, you're able to see the exact keyword phrase they used, right?
You sure can. Yep, absolutely.
So I always have my team, whenever they see something that's like kind of strange or looks like, like that obviously is not something typed in. And it's very clear when somebody says, okay, Google, right? Okay, Google is a way to start talking to your browser or your phone. So, okay, Google, how much does a lawyer usually charge for Class A misdemeanor assault against a family member? Okay. Somebody typed that in, or somebody said that to their phone, right? Google returned an ad that was relevant enough that the person clicked on it and went to our client's website, right? So like between the fact that on mobile, they're like crushing it with ads, and then with voice, Google's gotten so good at translating the intent of a sentence, like a spoken sentence, that they're able to show the right ad that led to a click and a conversion, right? So the fact that like some of our voice searches are turning into clicks and then conversions shows me that Google's got this kind of figured out.
Definitely.
They're getting voice search down, and then more and more things are happening via like those type of voice searches, right? So between these two things, I think we've come around over the past year where it's like not, SEO or PPC, you need to have some PPC strategy. You may not have to start off like, crazy, but you need to have some PPC strategy, because especially if all you do is just mobile PPC for a little bit. And the other side of that is, I said Google, it's like the tortoise versus the hare kind of thing. The ads are like the rabbit, the speedy rabbit. They are fast, but they're not instant. Do not expect to say, all right, I'm now going to put $1,000 into Google and it's going to spit back some leads. It takes time to get dialed in. Other people have been doing it for a while. A lot of times people don't realize, and Travis, I'm sure you get to explain this all the time when you're talking PPC on stage, right? Is that just because you bid as much as somebody else or more than somebody else, you may not get a higher position.
That's
Google
correct.
takes a whole bunch of other factors. Okay, so somebody who's been out there doing this for 1, 2, 6, 12 months, right? They've got a lot more data that they've given Google over time, that says for the same bid amount, I prefer to show this one because I have history with them. I know people click on it, they spend time on that website. The website kind of matches what the search ad is, you know, in our eyes. So they've had time to get that. So it usually takes, we tell people, and Travis, I'm curious like what you know, you typically say on stage, but we usually tell people about a minimum of 3 months to really bringing that kind of cost per click and cost per lead numbers to something that gets to like what I consider an acceptable beginning ROI.
Yeah, that's a safe bet. You know, I mean, if good firms can do it in 6-8 weeks, but you know, 3 months is really where you're comfortable, and that's, you know, kind of a standard rule. And it depends on the practice area. But again, you're right; it's not instantaneous. And I'm sure you're going to talk about quality score and all these other things, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. Most people just think you throw money at it and it should produce, and you know, it will produce leads, but you're not going to get optimal cost per conversion until you really got it figured out. And it takes a lot of expertise to do this. And, you know, you need to work with the right agency to this, because you can go through a ton of money really quickly if you don't, and you're going to be frustrated. But if you do it with the right agency, like Mark's agency, or you know, there's others out there, but I know these guys are really good at it, then they can get you a great cost per lead, a great cost per conversion. And they're going to be honest with you about what time it's going to take. And they're not going to say, look, in 2 weeks, you can be first. It's just that it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen that way.
Right, right. I mean, without spending too much that you don't get an ROI out of it, right? So
Right.
at the end of the day, it's not about just, you know, spending money and getting leads. It's about having the amount you spend for marketing be significantly less than you ultimately make on the profit of a case. Profit of a case, not revenue on a case, right? So that's another thing I hear all the time. We've talked about that before, Travis, about people using data incorrectly, about, you know, how much do you make on a case? I make it, you know, $2,000. Oh, great. Well, but they discount all the overhead and all the salary and all that kind of stuff that you only make $500 off the case, even though your revenue was 2,000, right?
Right.
And then, you know, they say, oh, well, great. Well, we can get you $1,000 cost per lead. It's like, well, that doesn't do anything. If it takes me 2 leads, I've lost 4 times my money. I didn't break even. So really, you know, be aware of how people kind of sell paid advertising. It needs to be about your ultimate ROI. And that communication needs to go back and forth. If you don't have a good lead capture system and an intake process that you can communicate back to your agency, or even internally, if you're running your own paid advertising, if you're not double checking that, this is where people get into trouble, right? So they just go throw money at paid advertising because somebody said you need to do ads, like I just did, right? So I said, hey, you need to do ads, but don't leave this webinar thinking I need to go jump on Google Ads, put $2,000 in there, and I'm going to get some leads, because a lot of things can go wrong, or you're just not going to like have the data to kind of like say, was that even a valuable spend of $2,000, right?
Yeah. And how many people do you get that call you, Mark, and say, oh, you know, I've had a bad experience with PPC?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I've lost a ton of money, and I don't know where it's going, and yep. And so that's why, you know, like this kind of, you know, joking meme here, right? It's like, you know, hire a carpenter. No, I'll do it myself, and that's the kind of stuff I see, right? So, you know, my warning on PPC is unless you've got somebody in-house who's doing this pretty much full time and is learning how to do it and can spend the time keeping up with it. I mean, because Google makes so much money in this area, it's an area that they're constantly changing and improving. So you got to really stay on top of it. I mean, they just went from like, you know, 2 lines to 4 lines, and then, you know, 4 lines to like all these other things. And then you had to like, literally like in 6 months, we had to update like all our ads for all our clients. Right. So, I mean, it's nice if they gave us about a 6-month warning, but we literally had to go and change everything. And so they do that like about once a year. So if you have somebody in-house doing it full time, you can do it, but this is one of those areas. Almost everything I say in our book is like, you can do it on your own other than paid advertising. And it sounds like you kind of are similar minded, Travis.
Oh yeah, look, I don't recommend anybody try this on their own. And we have an attorney. Well, we had a client spending $33,000 a month on PPC. He did no tracking. He had no idea what his analytics looked like. It was just insane, and he wouldn't turn it over to us because he had trust issues. And you know, I was just shocked, and I felt like I just wanted to reach out and give him a hug. So and just say, look, man, you need help. But you know, there's just people who feel like that they, you know, everyone's out to get them. But you know, if you pay to get this right, if you pay someone to do it right, your return on your investment will be double what it will be if you do it yourself. We've seen it every single time. I mean, it's crazy when people try to do this themselves and spend a lot of money doing it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm an agency owner, I'm a business owner, so I get it, right? Like the default thing for me is like that I have to be careful that not invented here syndrome, right? It's like, oh, well, if I'm not doing it, then it can't be the best, right? But we've constantly look at things like, we recently just handed our phone calls off to somebody who can be there 24 hours and answer the questions correctly, take care of our intake and that kind of stuff. And that took me forever to like let that first step go, right? Hiring like your first kind of like sales and marketing people, like, oh no, I'm the only person who can say the message, right? So I get it. I get why people are hesitant. I mean, because I've seen myself fall into that trap before. But here's some examples of just where things, we see easy things that go wrong that people don't think about, right? One of the like we've got a whole list of like words that should be negative keywords. A negative keyword means if somebody types this keyword in to Google, do not show my ad, right? And we've got a list of them that we put on every campaign we have just because we collect them over time. And free or pro bono, unless you literally are looking for pro bono work and want to pay to get that work, for the most part, most people don't want the word free and be bidding on that, right? So here's two, and I just, again, I don't, if anybody's, I don't have these firms, or I just did some random searches and came up with some of these. So, but here's two people that are bidding on the word free DUI attorney. Now, if somebody types free DUI attorney, your ad comes up, but they click on it and they call you, and suddenly, you're really expensive, or you want a few $1,000s to solve their problem. They're not going to be happy, right? Because they type free DUI attorney, and then even further than that, when they're not happy, then they go leave you a bad review, right? And you spent money on that click. You spent money to have somebody come and be unhappy, or to just clutter your staff's, like phones with, people looking for, for free work, right? So we had one client that had free and pro bono that they were bidding on when they came to us, and I think it added up to like $30,000 over a year they spent on clicks with the word free or pro bono. A year. That's insane. So the other one we see is not thinking about your location, right? So if I'm, let's say my elderly mom passes away in Florida, and because she retired down there, and I have to deal with, the estate plan and get through some probate issues and stuff. Like if I have to deal with that, and I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, I'm gonna be like, probate attorney, Tampa, Florida. I'm looking for somebody down there, right? Who can help me down there? But there's like Florida, and then this Hoffman lawyer is in Kentucky. Now, Cincinnati's right across the river from Kentucky. It's where we're headquartered. So, 5 miles away from me is this lawyer who is bidding on me looking for somebody in Florida. So if I clicked on that, because by the way, the only reason I knew it was Kentucky because I happen to know the area code. But if you didn't know that and you clicked on that person and called them, they paid for you to call them, and they basically would say, oh no, sorry, we can't work in Florida, right? I mean, that would be their default answer. So these are the type of things that we see all the time that people are just wasting money. So this is, Travis, when you say people are coming to you saying, oh, it didn't work for me, it's because things are set up like this all the time. Now I'm going to get this guide over to the AEA, so we'll get that loaded up there. But if somebody wants to grab it, it's gngf.com PPC-guide. We came up with the 7 top things that we consistently saw that were kind of like taking ad campaigns sideways, and just implementing those. We usually recommend can increase your ROI. But we'll get that loaded up to the AEA, Travis.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, just send it over. We'll get it up right away. We'll send out a link to everybody so they can download it.
All right. So last thing, and then I know we got to have time for questions. So the biggest thing about SEO and PPC that we found that has kind of been shocking over the last few years is that it's kind of like the Reese's peanut butter cups. It's like 2 great tastes that taste better together. Okay. SEO and PPC is a 1 + 1 = 3. Okay. So if I told you that your organic search was consistently 350 users a week, and I say, okay, we're going to add a PPC campaign and we're going to add 100 users per week. So that means we're going to get 600 users per week. You'd be like, what? That doesn't add up, right? Well, what we found is that when you're doing both and you own more real estate on the first page, it actually grows your clicks more than just adding the PPC campaign. Google, this is an older, it's actually better than this now, but this is an older screenshot from Google's blog. And because you can see like their example actually has ads on the right, which don't exist anymore. But they're basically saying if you are not, well, if you're in the top, ranking, you still get 50% gain. And what they were trying to show is that you do not have cannibalism from your PPC to your organic. You get a little bit, but there's still a significant gain. It's like worth the effort when you do organic and paid combined. And what's interesting is if you're like ranking 5, you know, five or higher, it's actually almost 100% better than just the spend. So this is an example, right? You have a paid ad, and a search engine, you know, like there. So this person's got a paid advertisement in the second slot. They're the paid ad in the Google My Business listing, and they were the third level in the Google My Business listing. In this case, there was another law firm with the same name. So I think they paid to kind of get above them in the maps. Not a bad strategy, actually. So you really want to control that brand message. So this is the actual example, right? So they were on average about 350. They were kind of like hovering, you know, jumps between 250 and 400 or something like that. So they were about 350 coming into this. We added paid advertising. Okay, paid advertising was only less than 20% of their traffic to their website, but suddenly they're at 600, right? So the paid and organic work combined increased it more than just spending money on the paid, right? So it is that kind of 1 + 1 = 3. You do get some other benefits by doing paid advertising. You can quickly test your ad copy, and then the things that work really good, incorporate that into your title tags or content strategy, or improve some things there, right? Keywords. Remember I showed you those keywords about actual voice searches. The paid ads gives you all that detail about keywords, and then you can take that and improve your search engine optimization content strategies. The other thing, it allows you to control your message. Sometimes Google decides what it wants to show on your organic, the message for you, like what it takes from the page and puts there. If you do a paid advertising, you get to control exactly what you want to say. If you want to throw an offer out there or something, you can do that. So that's it. That was a lot, but the big takeaway, SEO works. And it works well. Focus on the branded. That's an easy win. A lot of people miss. Paid advertising. I used to say, you know, you don't really have to do it. Now I say you pretty much need to be in the game just because of mobile. And I think voice search coming up. And then when it comes to paid ad, I wouldn't recommend doing it on your own. But the cool thing is that paid advertising and search engine optimization, when done together, actually lead to a increase that's better than each individual part.
Yeah, I agree. And both, and it is still true. And I still believe, you know, SEO over the long term is still a better investment because it has an ROI, higher ROI long term. But, you know, again, like you said, PPC, SEO, it takes, you know, a year these days to really gain some traction that's meaningful. And PPC, you're looking more, you know, 60, 90, 120 days. So it's, you know, there's definitely benefits to both, but like you said, put it together and you got a very nice combination, and you don't have to spend a fortune on either. You know, as long as you got to, you know, you have to be realistic with what you do have to spend, and doing it right the first time, you know, going with the right agency the first time, being patient, having realistic expectations, and not expecting the world to change for you in a positive way in 30 days. That's, you know, the best advice, you know, that I can give people is just go with the right agency, go with the guys like Mark who know what they're doing and they do this the right way. And yeah, it's not what you want to hear. They don't have the next, you know, magic bullet that's going to change the world for you quickly, but they do things the right way. And that's what makes the biggest difference. And that's why we try to share the information with you, get you guys connected with the right people. That's what the AEA is all about. It's just, you know, really connecting our attorneys with the right vendors so that they don't make mistakes that we've all made before. Mark, how many people have you hired, you know, other vendors to do different things for your business that just you probably shouldn't have hired and it didn't work out well?
Yep. Like I said, I'm a business owner too, right? So we've all been there, and I get it. And I think that I try to bring, you know, keep that hat on, you know, when I'm talking to people, kind of, you know, realizing that, hey, you know, like they're like everybody's hesitant. So because we've all been burned before on something. So I think any questions out of this? I know I try to go fast.
I think you covered a lot of great information. We don't have any questions right now, but I will encourage people to reach out to Mark if you guys do have questions. I know he, you know, if someone on his team's always available, and they're not going to sell you. I mean, it's just, they're great about answering questions. You can reach out to the AEA, go in the forum, ask a question. Someone will be there to answer it. And, you know, there's a lot of partners in there that'll jump in on the conversation. So, you know, again, if you have questions, ask the questions. There's no stupid questions when it comes to this, especially from, you know, from an SEO PPC perspective, because it is confusing. It really is. So getting it right the first time is very important.
Awesome. Thank you. And for some reason, I'm really hungry for a Reese's peanut butter cup. So.
I've been sitting here eating M&Ms while you've been talking, so I'm good. Actually, peanut butter M&Ms, so it's actually even better. But hey, Mark, I can't tell you how much we appreciate your time. We still don't have any questions, which is probably a good thing from a perspective of you covered everything really well. But if there's anything you want to share in the last few minutes here, we can share it, or we can wrap it up. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, I left this slide up here just so people can write this down. Grab the ability to grab a free book there. I mean, I think it's, like I said, you can go to Amazon and pay $60 or we'll send it to you for free. But really that's us saying thank you to AEA and trying to offer value to their members, because I really love what you guys are doing. And so it will have detail, like kind of maybe even how-tos, and even there, like if there's not how-tos in the book, we've got links in the book that take you to, step by step, here's how to set up a Facebook page correctly and things like that. So we try to, give a lot of detail in there. It's a how-to book. It's not just fluff. It's there's strategies, but it's also kind of like, here's how you actually go do it. So that is a good backing to a lot of the stuff we talked about. I mean, book's been, it's 5th edition, I think. We're on now. So
I've read each one of them, actually, believe it or not, I have, and they've all been great books. So I highly encourage people to go out and get them. And again, I want to mention one more time, Mark and I will be in Indianapolis, September 21st. So if you're interested in attending a conference that will absolutely have zero selling, no selling involved in it, it's 100% educational. We are there just to answer questions, educate you on the latest trends, give you the insight so you don't make the same mistakes that a lot of other attorneys make over and over and over again. So you could not waste the money and time that you do, are very hard to get. Both of those are extremely hard to get these days in this industry. Come join us. It's very inexpensive. There's an early bird sign up. It's less than, I think it's like $140. So it's really inexpensive for, a full day session. We would love to have you there. There's only 30 seats available. So, join us, and we'd love to spend some time with you. Well, it looks like I have a question actually, Mark. So, a question for you is your advice different for a complex business transaction related practice compared to an individual consumer-based practice? So I guess, let me ask that again. So is your advice different for a complex business transaction, practice compared to an individual consumer-based practice?
Yep. No, I mean, good question. So for kind of like complex business, which is usually like, I think more B2B, so maybe it's a business law, patent, like somebody's going through a corporate divorce and all the issues that come with that, right? So those things, first of all, I think everything we talked about, it's not that it doesn't apply. I think, first of all, you focus a lot more on the branded, because most business transactions, it's a heavy networking, right? So, I mean, like the large law firm type business lawyers are out there. So that's a big area. And then the other thing is, I would say, instead of, you don't have to jump on Google Ads, definitely have some content up there for search engine optimization around like your expertise, so people can go find that. But there's other places where I think business owners or business, people who are looking to solve complex problems are often maybe turning to LinkedIn for information. So LinkedIn's a great place to be sharing your content, where somebody who's in an accident or divorce and stuff like that is probably not starting at LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a great resource for B2B type transactions that you can advertise and target on LinkedIn. But for content, it is like a target rich environment right now. If you've got good content that you're doing on your regular website and like frequently asked question content, stuff like that, you can put some stuff on LinkedIn and get a lot more traction than you can anywhere else right now, because they're really trying to grow that platform and spend a lot of time and effort on it. And the amount of, like, only 3% of users, it's an interesting stat for you. I'm full of stats, Travis. I think I just read like 3% of users or something like that are uploading content to LinkedIn. The rest are just kind of like visiting it and looking at it and connecting. So the odds of your content getting to in front of more eyeballs, if you're consistent about it on LinkedIn on a business to business world, is awesome. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more. A great answer to that question, by the way. Any other questions, folks? Feel free to type them in, or again, we'll Mark, you have your contact information on any slide that's in there? If not, we can
I do not. You can put it in the email. I mean, if you go to gngf.com, and there's a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of ways to get a hold of us. I'm at Mark_Homer on Twitter, and I'm Mark@gngf.com. So we can put that in emails follow up afterwards. But happy to talk to anybody or anyone on my team. If I'm not available, we've got a few people that like I think we'll probably bring them to the conference too, and like we did in the last one, where people were able to kind of like I said, pull up their analytics and start looking at them right there over lunch or a break and stuff like that. It was nice having the team there to be able to dive in deep with a bunch of the law firms there.
Yeah, and I really enjoy spending time with people and answering their questions and hopefully give them some insight and help them out. But, well, it's that time again, and we appreciate everyone for joining us today. Mark, thank you so much for your time, and we will see you in Indianapolis.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.